Welcome to Forum 360 on Fusion, your PBS channel. I'm Ben Rancman, your host today. Thank you for joining us for a global outlook with a local view. Music is a unique human pursuit, an endeavor that separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. It can arouse human passions, warm our hearts, and bring back feelings of nostalgia. Amongst the religious, music helps transport the believer to higher realms. Even amongst skeptics, music may be one of the few transcendental experiences that they engage in. 2020 has been a particularly difficult year for music lovers. So many concerts have been canceled and many music venues have shut their doors, some for good. And so it is with a happy heart, that I am sitting down here with Howard Bender, Executive Director of Apollo's Fire, a period instrument ensemble specializing in early music, that of the Renaissance, Baroque, and early classical periods. Apollo's Fire has been amongst the shining stars in the arts firmament of Northeast Ohio, and indeed nationally. This Emmy Award-winning ensemble has continued to garner rave reviews wherever they have performed, and they have performed everywhere around the world. It is my pleasure to introduce Howard Bender to discuss Apollo's Fire, the music scene, and even live music in the era of COVID. Welcome, Howard, and thank you for joining us today on Forum 360.
Thanks very much, Ben. It's my pleasure to be here, meet everyone, and talk about Apollo's Fire today.
My pleasure as well, too. I've been a fan for quite some time.
Thank you.
And I've enjoyed attending the concerts, and they've really just enlightened my life personally, and I'm particularly excited about going to concerts this year, in a year where perhaps we need live music more than ever.
We do, to uplift us and re-inspire us.
I agree. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about Apollo's Fire, learn a little bit about the organization, its history, its mission, and really, when we talk about Apollo's Fire, we of course have to talk about Jeanette Sorrell, its founding artistic director, and she founded this organization nearly 30 years ago in 1992. And she founded this organization, and I guess the express purpose was to play period instruments and play music from the Renaissance, from the Baroque and classical periods. And maybe you could tell me what sort of the guiding principles of the organization were then. Have they changed, and if so, how?
Sure. Well, Jeanette Sorrell is not only a musical genius, she's an entrepreneurial genius. She thinks in eighth notes and quarter notes and in orchestral sound and in precision and in tuning, but she also thinks like a business person. She thinks in spreadsheets. She takes those eighth notes and those wonderful crescendo colors that she makes from the harpsichord with the entire ensemble, and she turns them into marketable products that have meaning in our community, that have meaning internationally, that may be Vivaldi, they may be Bach, they may be larger ensemble of a large oratorio by Bach or by Handel, or a smaller, more chamber ensemble, or it may mean a sort of Apollo's Fire crossover sort of repertoire, like a Sephardic Journey, like Christmas on Sugarloaf Mountain. All of these programs that celebrate Appalachian folk music, Celtic folk music, Irish, and the like. That's why I say crossover. She's been able to take all of this, make it into a marketable product where people will purchase tickets, a lot of tickets usually, for sold-out performances, and that's why she's such a fascinating musical genius and fascinating partner to work with, because indeed her fingerprints and her very soul is imprinted in the DNA all over Apollo's Fire.
Well, I really appreciate this notion of sort of having two minds, this artistic side, which obviously is essential, but also having that proper business mind as well too. And I think perhaps in this environment, that being this Renaissance person is really essential to survive.
Right. Knowing what the public is going to want before they know. Knowing your public and your donors and your wonderfully generous board members and supporters that Apollo's Fire is blessed with, knowing what they want before they want it, and knowing that it's going to be a commercial as well as artistic success, that's really what very few people know in the entertainment industry, not just necessarily in classical music or in orchestral music. And that is a very particular sort of talent that I enjoy being around, and that our staff, being who they are, very much enjoys being around. We have very, very flexible, dedicated people, and most of them, you could call anyone on our staff, and not only can they help you with, if you want to donate funds, but they can probably give you the history of the performance of whatever we're performing that week, because many of them have 1 or 2 degrees in music. So it's an orchestra where everyone's on the same page, and we do our best to always make sure that in our community, it's not just the adults that we're serving, but it's the next generation of musicians, of audience members, of patrons, of kind donors, and making sure to inspire them to make sure that they feel included, that they see pictures of people that look like them on our website, in our marketing, for-color marketing collateral, we call it.
Yeah.
That's very important. And not to wait, but to reach out and grab young students throughout northeastern Ohio and say, you could be a part of this orchestra. You could be on that stage playing. You could be in the Apollo's Fire Singers in one of our choruses. You could be in the Apollo's Musettes, the youth choir, and eventually you could be in our leadership. We welcome you, and using a pipeline approach to attracting you in a new program we call Mosaic. That is how we can reach out to you, be accessible to you, and then have you help lead us in this community, especially now when our world needs so much inspiration in trying to come back to a new normal, to help you be resilient.
Resilient, and that's of course one of the themes of this year's concert season. And my understanding is I believe it's called A Pilgrimage of Hope, and
Yes.
The first concert of the year was called Resilience, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell me a little bit about this concert season and how our current environment helped to shape the repertoire.
Sure. So we entitled this season A Pilgrimage of Hope, and there are 6 separate subscription series, beginning with Resilience, Allure, the 3 Amandas, Delight, A Fiddler's Noel, different sort of Christmas concert, Elegance, Triumph, some Handel oratorio, and Celebration, a well-known chestnut called Vivaldi's Four Seasons, but seen through the way Jeanette Sorrell engages an audience with it, which is very different from what you expect. So it is a journey. Resilience was received very, very well, and it, of course, people were socially distanced, and only X amount of patrons, audience members could be in any venue, which was carefully thought out. People yelled bravo so that we could hear them even though they were completely masked.
Right.
And our performers were almost in these futuristic-looking phone booths, which is the best way I can describe them. We had plastic and glass almost enclosures that separated the musicians from each other or from Jeanette. So especially if someone was singing or if someone was playing a Baroque flute, that safety was in mind for the performers, and they were far enough away from the first rows of the audience. But the repertoire was all about music and poetry that spanned from the bubonic plague to the Civil War.
Well, it is a interesting repertoire, and particularly the as it moves through, I think you sort of move from concern and difficulty, but to hope. And ultimately, I think that there is this prevailing dominant message of hope that sort of you can see this through line throughout the year. I would like to take a moment to reintroduce our topic and guest. I'm speaking with Howard Bender, Executive Director of the period music ensemble Apollo's Fire. So thank you, Howard.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yes, and one of the things that really interests me is just the challenge right now of putting together a socially responsible, socially distanced performance, and particularly, as you mentioned, before the world of COVID, we never really thought about singers perhaps as being agents of contagion, or instrumentalists who are playing wind instruments of somehow being in a position where they might put an audience in danger. But of course, in this new COVID-19 world we live in, these are the considerations we have to make. So you've done a variety of different things, and I was just delighted to find that the orchestra is, of course, having live performances, because I have found in these last few months a tremendous need. I enjoy live performances tremendously, and there has been a dearth of live performances available. So I was delighted when I discovered that Apollo's Fire was indeed having live performances. But for those people who maybe have some prevailing health concerns, things of that nature, maybe of a certain age where they still might not feel comfortable, you do have a whole series of watch-at-home concerts as well. Maybe you can sort of tell me, you had mentioned some of the strictures that you've had to put in place for your concerts, more than likely with attendance and capacities of the audience, but some other things as well. And then maybe you could tell me a little bit about the Watch at Home series.
Sure. So the Pilgrimage of Hope season was built from a business and an artistic perspective of being sort of no risk. You could purchase a subscription from us when subscriptions went on sale early, and you could decide 3 days before a particular concert and call the box office. If you had decided to come in person, you could call us and say, you know what, we think we're going to feel safer if we watch it at home. And what does that mean? That means about a week later, we send you a link to that concert that you can cast to your TV set. People use it. It's called Vimeo. It's a fantastic platform, and you can watch this entire concert fully produced with many cameras, an intermission feature, and everything you might expect from PBS great performances, perhaps. So you will experience this fully produced, and a week later in the comfort of your own home. And we found that so many people have written to us telling us how much they enjoyed the artistic quality, the sound quality, and the video production quality. So you can go to apollosfire.org and find out all about this. There's no risk to being inspired this season if you come along with us on our pilgrimage.
I'm very excited to see some of these as the year progresses. One thing that I thought was actually rather interesting too were some of the Zoom pre-concert talks. And I think sometimes, and I think particularly in this environment we live in, there's such a barrier to entry with classical music. I think many people have perhaps this fear that, they're going to be, found out to be a fraud, that they don't really understand this music, that somehow people are going to show them as being boors or unsophisticated. And my experience with Apollo's Fire is precisely the opposite. I remember seeing a Celtic Christmas at the old Rockefellers in Cleveland Heights, which was a great venue because to me it sort of exemplified the way that music really should be performed. It felt like a party. It felt festive. There were people grabbing a drink. It was intimate. There was laughter in the room, and all the barriers to entry had come down. And I think there was just this sense of enjoyment, and we forget that, of course, classical music was meant to be entertainment, and it sort of has all these different layers of, socialization, and we have to dress in a particular way, or people think they have to dress in a particular way, and only cough at particular times, and this sort of thing.
Applauded particular
and
times.
Of course, applauded
Right.
at particular times. And I just found that the concert that I attended dispensed with all of that, and it was really just the sheer joy of the musicianship, the musicality, and being there with these fantastic musicians.
Well, the up close and personal concerts like the one you experienced at Rockefeller, or anything that has to do with a Bach concert that's more like Bach's coffee house concerts, that not only draws audiences in, it was the popular music of the day. Right. Whether it's Bach or Henry Purcell or John Dowland, whoever it is, that was the popular music of the day. And too much often in our world, we have built all of these sort of ossified traditions and norms, the way you have to listen and the way you have to enjoy. And that's not the Apollo's Fire's philosophy. And what we'd love to do is bring you to, a crossover concert like the one you went to in Rockefeller's restaurant, and then say, you know what, maybe I'd like to go to a Bach oratorio. And we'll have someone call you and say, you did love that. Well, what's the next step? And that is a marketing activity that is obvious for us, and that has been pleasurable to see someone who first enters our database, for instance, coming to an outdoor concert this summer in their automobile. And instead of applauding, they honk their horns, and people had the time of their lives for this wonderful Italian program called Tuscan Sun, all Italian popular music of its time. And some people came because it was accessible. And then they said, you know what, I think we'll buy a ticket to the Handel Oratorio coming up.
So perhaps the crossover and folk genre is a gateway drug.
It's very much of a gateway.
Very nice. And I particularly appreciate this notion of sort of bringing down some of these barriers and essentially just having the music speak for itself. And you've done some of the other things that you alluded to earlier in this conversation about bringing in young people, giving them the sense that you can perform in this chorus. You can become a musician in here. And also reaching out to communities of color who historically maybe they have felt some of those barriers to entry that certainly the general population feels. Maybe they've felt it even more acutely. And there's this notion, no, you can become a performer here. If you enjoy this music, come enjoy it with us.
Come and join us, and we will help you. We will teach you through the Community Access Initiative, the newest part called Mosaic, through $12 tickets, in the last days, through Student Rush tickets, through all of these methods that you could find at apollosfire.org. This is how we want you to join us, become our future stars, become our future teachers of this genre, and become our future leaders.
No, it's an inspiring message. It's certainly one that resonates with me. And maybe you could tell us a little bit more about this upcoming season. You had highlighted the names of some of the programs, but maybe I'm personally very excited. I will be attending Allure, which I believe is a program based on the three ladies of Ferrara, who are considered amongst the first female musicians, professional musicians perhaps, of all time. There were, of course, female musicians before that, but these were professional musicians, and that was quite a distinction to be able to make your living as a musician in those days.
That's right.
And I'm excited to hear this. I mean, you have three sopranos, all named Amanda, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe take me through that concert, and maybe some of the subsequent ones that are some standouts for you.
My pleasure. Allure, the three Amandas, is three Amandas who are world stars, as two sopranos and one mezzo, Amanda Forsyth, who's performed with us many times, as well as Amanda Powell, both sopranos, and Amanda Kreider, being a little bit lower, the mezzo-soprano. It is the three of them performing all dance music around one particular dance called the chaconne, if it's French, or chacona, if it's Italian or Spanish. So this is mostly Italian and Spanish music. One very well-known, a female composer of the era as well, will be highlighted. Her name is Barbara Strozzi. Very, very interesting music, all dance-themed. These three artists are tremendous performers. And know how to engage an audience even if they're in phone booths. So this is all dance-themed and music for solo, but also ensembles, the three of them. And they're accompanied by an ensemble of 9 instrumentalists, including Parker Ramsey, one of the top harpists of our age. Parker Ramsey will be here. So
I have always found the harp to be one of the most enchanting musical instruments. I love it. I grew up playing the piano, but there's something about the harp. When I was in college, I dated a girl who was a harpist for a period of time. And I met her actually when she was performing, and there's just something about it. I think I fell in love with the harp, perhaps.
Well, it's one of the interesting textures in this particular concert. Also, we have audience favorite Renee Schiefer, our principal cellist, who will be with us. Around Christmas time, Delight is called A Fiddler's Noel, because we will be presenting Apollo's Fire's Masked Fiddlers. Of course, in our original thoughts, we would be doing a Celtic Christmas, a large Christmas-oriented type program, which without a chorus, we needed to reinvent that concert very quickly, and it became the Delight, the Fiddler's Noel, which is going to be a lot of fun, a lot of great music. Amanda Powell will be back. Olivier Brault, our concertmaster from Quebec, will be back. Parker Ramsey will be back later in the season for February, a group of concerts called Elegance, the Harper's Voice. And we have found, like you, that harp music internationally, and especially to our Northeastern Ohio fans, is very, very popular. So we're delighted to have Parker 2 times in one season. Of course, later in the season, there's some Handel afoot, coming with Triumph, and then one of my favorite things that I've seen Apollo's Fire do is the Four Seasons. And we're calling that Celebration, from resilience through delight and elegance to celebration on our journey. And this is a way that Jeanette Sorel engages an audience by saying, yes, you all know the Four Seasons, but you've never heard it like this. And you've never thought about it like the way we're going to show you. So there's a little bit of demonstration, and then the entire piece is played. And it was delightful for me to be in the audience for a performance like that, and see that the audience was, not sitting as if they were had to be somewhere, but they were on the edge of their seats, saying, "Yeah, Jeanette said that. That's right. I never knew that Vivaldi wasn't a square. That Vivaldi was just this wonderful, ebullient personality." They called him the Red Priest, of course.
Is that right?
Yes, but
why the Red Priest?
He had fabulous red hair.
Ah, okay.
And but like Apollo's Fire, a very unstuffy sort of music, if you just listen to the way Jeanette wants to present it to you.
Very nice. I'm excited to hear it, and I really can see that move, the trajectory from The early concerts in the year where you're dealing with the Purcell pieces and others dealing with these heavy themes of plague, and which of course resonate with us, but ending in the Vivaldi and the Four Seasons, which of course are some of the most uplifting music in the entire classical music repertoire. And I'm just delighted to hear how Apollo's Fire will actually adapt it and change it and make it their own, which I'm certain that they will. But music has the power to soothe the savage soul. And there are few better examples of the power of music than Apollo's Fire. Named after the classical god of music and the sun, Apollo was seen as bearing particular gifts to men, and women, of course. It is perhaps during this moment that we need music more than ever. Thankfully, Apollo's Fire is here to provide just the respite and salve that we need. Howard, I want to thank you for your part in bringing together these magnificent performances. They are available in both socially distanced in-person performances and via a Watch at Home series with Zoom pre-concert talks and a post-concert lobby session with the musicians. Once again, I would like to thank Howard Bender of Apollo's Fire for his insights in this delightful conversation. Thank you so much, Howard.
Thank you, Ben.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.